We're here because prayers have brought us here from our forefathers, from our foremothers, who have gone before us, not just our immediate predecessors, but the ones centuries ago. Now, following on from this mini-series, Mark Batterson's Draw the Circle book of videos and what some of us have been doing in our Connect groups. The passage that Barbara read this morning, it all builds on this ripple of prayer.
I believe that many of the blessings we enjoy are because of someone else's prayers. Spiritual fathers and spiritual mothers who have gone before us. I think one of the greatest moments in eternity will be when God the Father gathers his children, pulls back the curtain of time, and connects the dots between our prayers and his answers. Those dotted lines will cross nations and generations. It'll be a celebration of God's sovereignty, but I also think we'll have an opportunity to thank those whose prayers have directly and indirectly impacted our lives. Over the past few weeks, we've been dreaming big, praying hard, and thinking long. We've been circling people and problems and promises. As we end this series, we're just getting started. The goal wasn't circling for 40 days. The goal was to still be praying on day 41. Here's the good news. There's no expiration date on prayer. Our prayers don't dissipate over time. They accumulate. They compound interest. Every prayer you pray ripples all the way into eternity. That's the power of a single prayer. That's the legacy we leave the next generation. Keep circling.
Have you ever skimmed a stone and watched the ripples go outward? The first time my father saw me after I was born, apparently my hands were in a praying position, and he declared to my mother that I was going to be a preacher. Many times after that, he showed his love and he gave his time and patience with me as he taught me how to skim stones. And they were wonderful times. And after that, my mother instilled in me how important it was to start praying when I was young. Denise and I, with Douglas and Sarah, our son and daughter, and now our granddaughter, Matilda, have spent again many similar and wonderful hours skimming stones, teaching them how to choose exactly the right stone, but also teaching them prayer. Delightful memories, testimonies, and legacies across generations. When those stones impact the water, the impact might be small, but the ripples extend far beyond where stones first landed. And they continue even when we can't see those ripples. To repeat what Mark Batterson said, he said there is no expiration date on prayers. They do not dissipate over time, rather they accumulate, compound and ripple into eternity. The legacy we leave the next generation and the one after that. The power of faith and obedience, small acts of trust in God, like Lucy this morning. Trusting God can create waves that extend far beyond our lives, touching generations to come. We pray for healing. Who hears? And who does respond even when we can't see it always ourselves? That's the essence of the ripple effect, a principle not only seen in nature but also in faith, which we have to extend. Prayer and faith don't just affect our lives. They affect the lives of generations yet to be. So when we step out in faith, we trust God beyond what we can see. And we are laying down effectively memorial stones, moments that will inspire those who come after us. Think of the passage that Barbara read, and we'll come back to that. Let's break it down. Because every act of prayer, every answered prayer, and every miracle has a purpose beyond the present moment. So in the first 3 verses, when the whole nation had finished crossing the Jordan, the Lord said to Joshua, choose 12 men, one from each tribe. And he says to them to take up 12 stones from the middle of the river, and he wants them to take those stones and carry them to where they were going to stay that night. Now the Israelites had just finished walking across. They'd witnessed a miracle, the cutting off of the rivers and the waters of the River Jordan. But before they moved forward, God wanted them to gather stones from the riverbed as a memorial. Why? Because God wanted future generations to see those stones and remember his faithfulness. The faithfulness of our fathers, mothers, forefathers, foremothers, grandparents, great-grandparents, and way beyond. God wanted future generations to see and remember his faithfulness. Faith isn't just about what God does for us now, but what he's about to do and what he does through us and through our children and nieces and nephews and grandchildren and way beyond. Now, some of you will know that I've just returned from another multi-week hike in Spain, another walking pilgrimage called a Camino. That's the 4th Camino route I've done to Santiago within the last 2 years. And they are some of the most meaningful journeys in my life that I've ever made. They're ancient pilgrimage routes. The majority lead to Santiago de Compostela in Spain, where the remains of the St. James the Apostle are believed, reputed to be buried. Now, people from all over the world come and walk these Caminos. Some do it because they're just great hikes through the countryside. Others do it because it's a spiritual journey for them, or a personal reflection time. For me, they've also been a period of deep prayer, especially since we've moved here nearly 2 years ago, for my other extended family here at Beacon. They've deepened my connection to God, and I've learned even more of his truth and his desire to push through. To trust his provision, step by step. Lucy didn't know what I'd written down. Step by step, we're moving forward. Each day on the pilgrimages, they bring new experiences, different landscapes, quiet moments of reflection, and unexpected friendships with fellow pilgrims that you just happen to meet. And ask for prayer from you. Like the Israelites placing stones from the Jordan to remember God's faithfulness, every step I take on any of these journeys becomes a marker of his presence in my life. And reaching Santiago every time after a Camino isn't just about finishing that walk for me. It's about realizing how much God has been shaping me along the way. All the walks that each of us have, whatever we do, God shapes each and every one of us. It's not just a path on a map. In Spain for me, in Whitchurch on a canal bank, on the journeys of life that each of us take, it's not just a path on the map. It's a path on God's map for each of us. It's a journey of faith, and I carry those lessons that he teaches me every day. Now, the Israelites' obedience to carry those stones was a simple act, but it created a ripple effect of faith for future generations. Now, that obedience that they had led to a testimony, a story that would remind generations to come of God's faithfulness. Their testimony led to a transformation. Future generations trusted God because they could see of those stones and what they represented and what God had done. And they then led to a legacy, a lasting impact that would stretch way beyond their own lifetimes, generation after generation after generation. Obedience to God, you see, and even in small things, sets off a chain reaction. We may not realize that, but it does. Testimony, transformation, and legacy. When we step out in faith like Joshua did, we create a testimony that impacts everybody around us. Our prayers don't just change circumstances, they change us, preparing us for greater things. Reading on in that passage in Joshua, we learn how the ripple effect impacted future generations. In verses 6 to 7, in the future, when the children ask you, what do these stones mean? Tell them that the flow of the Jordan was cut off before the ark of the covenant of the Lord. And these stones are to be a memorial to the people of Israel forever. God knew that one day children would see those stones and ask about them. Our children, and not just our children, but the children that we have and the children at this church, ask about the things that God impacts on them. That moment of faith didn't just impact the Israelites crossing the Jordan, it impacted generations to come. And just like the Israelites setting up their stones as a memorial to remember God's faithfulness, my journeys to Santiago have become a living testimony of God's guidance and provision in me and to me, to the people that I meet. Every step that I take was like placing a stone on the path, making moments of my prayer, reflection, and divine encounters matter. One of the times on this last one that I did, I was praying for Mike, as well as everyone else here, as well as the elders, as well as lots of other people. And I went into tongues like sometimes I do. And I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop praying. And just mile after mile, I couldn't stop praying. That day, something changed. And just as those stones of the Israelites reminded future generations of how God led his people through the Jordan, my pilgrimages are personal reminders of how God spends time with me and us, step by step, shaping our faith, leaving a lasting impact on each of our journeys. Now, your faith today will be someone's faith tomorrow. Every prayer you pray, every step of obedience, every testimony you share has a lasting effect. Mark Batterson calls it praying through. When we persist in prayer, we're not just asking for immediate results, we're creating a spiritual legacy. Think of children who pray for their parents every day. Not just the other way around. Think of the children out there that pray for us. Not just us praying for them. Even if we don't see immediate changes, the prayers plant seeds that may blossom years later because of people here today, us here today, because someone, maybe a grandmother or a mentor or a friend, they prayed for each of us to be here today effectively. God extends that invitation and builds on it. So the challenge today one of them for you and me. Who in your life needs prayer at this time? How can you be intentional in creating a spiritual ripple effect for future generations? Because the ripple extends beyond what we can see. Matthew 7, verses 13, talks about the narrow way. Even through the narrow gate, enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate, and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate, and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it. Now the Camino is often a narrow, winding path, with plenty of ups and downs, I can tell you. Lots of elevation up and down. They require endurance and perseverance. Does that sound familiar? Jesus talks about the narrow road that leads to life. It's not always the easiest path, is it? But it's the one that leads us closer to him and then leads other generations to come closer to him as well. Mark Batterson goes on to talk about a businessman named John who prayed circles around his failing business. Over time, not only did his business thrive, but his faith grew and his employees were impacted. God moved in unexpected ways. Prayers had that ripple effect that extended and stretched far beyond his initial request. Now, Joshua and the Israelites couldn't see the full impact of their obedience in that moment. But God was setting the stage for future victories. Jericho, the promised land, generations of faith that followed. Now, on Caminos, particularly the Camino Francais, which is the most popular one, many pilgrims carry a physical burden in their backpacks to lay down at a place called the Cruz de Ferro, the Iron Cross, which is on about the highest elevation point. And the Camino can be a powerful place where many choose to lay down those burdens, the physical, the emotional, or even the spiritual problems and burdens in their life. But we don't need to do that because we have a personal invitation from Jesus, which Ken referred to. Come to me, all you are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Matthew 11. You see, our prayers may not be answered immediately. The ones for healing, they can be answered like this. Picking individuals, apologies, but it's truth. David was in hospital, prayed, and was here back quickly. Mike is still in hospital. Others are seriously ill. We know this in our lives. The key thing is we have to keep praying and to encourage one another. Because it doesn't mean that they're not being answered. It doesn't mean that they're not working. Like ripples in the sea, the full impact takes time to reach their destination. Now, many of you will know the Christian evangelist George Muller in the 19th century, or know of him. None of us are quite that old. He had an amazing life of prayer, and one example is that when he became a Christian himself, he selected 5 people who he knew, and he wanted them to be Christians. Now, after 10 years of praying, 3 had become Christians. Fabulous. He carried on praying for the other 2 for a total of over 50 years. He never gave up. They didn't become Christians until after he died, and then they became Christians. Answered prayer, 50 years more. Keep praying, never give up, keep believing, and keep trusting that God is at work even when we don't see it. Because when you pray regularly, irregular things start to happen on a regular basis. In our Connect group, we recently went through and looked at Acts 10 about Cornelius and Caesarea, about his prayer habits, how it opened the door to irregular things happening to him. Now, Cornelius was a Gentile, a Roman centurion in Caesarea. We're told that he was a devout and religious and God-fearing man who gave generously and prayed to God regularly. Now one day he had a vision when an angel appears to him and tells him that his prayers and gifts had been heard by God. The angel tells Cornelius to send men to Joppa. Why? To get Peter to come, a Gentile. But he immediately obeys. The whole story is significant because God uses that open door to salvation through to the Gentiles, through Peter's encounter with Cornelius. Now, I believe Cornelius' persistence and consistency in seeking God put him at that time then in the right position to receive divine and spiritual intervention because of his faithful prayers, his generosity. An angel appeared to him in a vision. Now that was an irregular but an extraordinary event. God directly responded to his prayers. He'd been praying for some time. Even though he was a Gentile, and we know at that time that was not expected by the Jews. His prayer opened his heart to obey God's message without hesitation, leading to this encounter with Peter and the opening to us effectively and to our generations to come. Just like his obedience led to that divine encounter, my own journeys on the Caminos are a step of faith that ripple into deeper spiritual growth. But not just for me. I come back and I tell Denise, I tell my family, and I tell people. Some here, some not here. Where God puts people. They're an act of trust, unexpected blessings, and a deeper awareness of his presence in my life. Now, Cornelius' devotion broke barriers. But what's each of ours call to action today? First, let's identify that stone, like those 12 stones. So what testimony has God given you that you can inspire others with? Just hold that and I'll repeat it. Identify your stone. Think of a testimony that can inspire others. Secondly, pray boldly. Step into a season, let's do this, of persistent prayer, trusting in that ripple effect. Thirdly, trust the process, even if we don't see the results straight away. Believe that God is working because he is hearing. There will be people here. I know that because I'm one of them who have struggled in prayer, previously or today, who get anguished because we don't see the results of unanswered prayer. But there again, we then do receive the results suddenly. Thanks, Josh. So I want to challenge each of us, you and me. Going to repeat these twice. What prayer do you need to circle today? What prayer do you need to circle today? About a circumstance or about a person? About a healing? What step of faith do you need to take that will start a ripple effect in your family, your community, and beyond? And if you don't have a family, you've got one. If you have more than one family, you've got more than one family. If you don't have children, you do have children. What step of faith do you need to start today that will start a ripple effect in your family and those around you? Thirdly, what testimony can you bring next week to share on Testimony Sunday? What testimony can you bring next week for Testimony Sunday? Now, Denise and I are away until after Easter. from effectively this Tuesday. But my prayer for that part is I want to come back and I want to hear about a queue of people waiting to give their testimonies next week, queuing behind each other. Okay? So think about those 3 challenges that I've said. What prayer do you need to circle today? What step of faith do you need to take that will start a ripple effect in your family and beyond? And what testimony can you bring? After the service, Ken and Den will be by the cross for anybody who wants to receive and decree a prayer over themselves or someone else. So let's decree this prayer out loud together that you'll see appear up here. I've personalized it, so it's going to be for each of us, not all of us. Ask God to use the ripples of faith that he inspires us with, and he gives other people when our own inspiration is low. And let's change this town, this area, and beyond in our lifetime and generations to come.